Hey, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome into the Fantasy Roundup. I'm your host, Spencer, the Guru Urquhart. Week 1 in the books. Ready to discuss that as well as week 2. And alongside me is Gabe Henderson, who is here in New Orleans. How you doing, man?
Good. I think we're gonna start to have to keep a tally of how many different places I do the show from. But this is, I think, four unique cities probably by now. So we'll see. But no, I'm excited. Really, a lot of headlines to talk about from week 1.
For sure, man. Yeah. Yeah, well-traveled man there, Gabe Henderson. We're gonna get into this, man, because week 1 had a lot of surprises, some disappointments as well. We're gonna talk about that as well as the waiver wire for week 2 because it was quite the crazy week. I mean, I don't know about you, but I feel like this is one of the wackier week 1s.
This is the best week you could possibly think of to have NFL Red Zone. Let me just put it that way.
Yeah, it was just craziness in every game, pretty much. It seemed like it just goes to show you can do all the preparation, all the study, and months of trying to get ready for this stuff, and yet we still don't know what the hell is going to happen because it's the NFL. It's a true just whatever happens is it's reality. It's a true reality thing. I know they had the goofball yesterday saying, "Oh, it's all scripted." It's like this is a complete opposite of scripted. Y'all really think they would have scripted Aaron Rodgers tear his Achilles on the opening drive? I don't think so.
Not only that, you really think they would have scripted Josh Allen and Joe Burrow being arguably the two worst quarterbacks in week 1?
Right? Yeah, it's just it makes no
Crazy.
sense. But anyway, let's get to these headlines here, which is basically be an injury report the rest of the way because for us fantasy players, got to keep up with the injuries. And since we do the show on Tuesday, we'll be updating these injuries here. Had a couple of season enders, unfortunately. Aaron Rodgers, torn Achilles, out for the season, as well as J.K. Dobbins, which you know what to do. You got to drop them. They're done, at least for this season. Rodgers might be career ending, being that he's nearly 40 years old and Achilles tough to rehab from. Dobbins' career also might be on the brink, being that this is now his second or third major injury. So yeah, tough, really tough to see for those guys. Deontay Johnson out multiple weeks with a hamstring injury, as well as Greg Dulcich. And I feel like those are the only major injuries. There may have been, there's some minor ones, of course, like Jacoby Myers and Tyler Lockett concussions. I say minor, those could end up serious. Hopefully not too bad. And then, of course, like guys like Travis Kelce, going to be questionable for this week, trying to make their way back. And then even guys that did well, like Austin Eckler, are kind of banged up coming out of week 1. So, yeah, there's a lot to digest. But I guess, Gabe, first off, I'd like to get your thoughts on the Aaron Rodgers thing, man. Just how crazy brutal was that last night?
Insanely brutal. I mean, it not only to Aaron Rodgers, not only to his teammates, but to Jets fans. I mean, as a Texans fan myself, I understand what it's like to be tortured, but good Lord, I can't even imagine what Jets fans are going through. But at the end of the night, they got the win. So it wasn't all bad.
Right, yeah, they got it done in overtime. Their defense really impressed me. I feel like they're still going to win 8 or 9 games just because of their defense. And they had Aaron Rodgers. I mean, I picked them to be a double-digit win team this year. Now it's probably not going to happen, but their defense is legit.
Yeah, their defense is good, but I mean, without Aaron Rodgers, I don't know how they get through the first few months of the season. That really tough stretch. I don't know if you've taken a look at their schedule.
Yeah, it's
It's
brutal. It's brutal.
brutal.
Yeah, I think
Probably
they get
the hardest
Dallas
in
this
the league.
week,
Yeah,
who whooped up on the Giants this week, 40-0, and that was, man, that was ugly. Man, that Daniel Jones could have put. He's another one to chalk up for those like disappointing quarterbacks. My
yeah.
goodness, whole lot of quarterbacks struggled this week. And then J.K. Dobbins done and those hamstrings and just injuries all around. Luckily, no, not too many season enders up until the Rodgers thing. I was like, okay, week 1 wasn't too bad. And there we go, star quarterback Dunzo. So yeah, it's NFL that shows no mercy sometimes. But let's recap the top scorers from this past week. Let's get on a positive note here. Recap the top scorers, guys that really balled out to start the season. Tyreek Hill, the number 1 fantasy week, 44.5 PPR points, just put on an absolute freak show. Tyreek the Freak, man. He's just a future Hall of Famer, just doing special things year after year, even without Patrick Mahomes. So, yeah, he's going to be at the top of the charts all year. Brandon Ayuk, a huge week. Started off strong, ended up with over 30 points. Jacoby Myers, a surprisingly strong week. We'll talk more about him in the surprises segment. He ends up being the Raiders' leading receiver and being one of the top scorers. Tua Tagovailoa, a big week there, 27. This is 4-point passing touchdowns. So if he was 6-point passing touchdowns, he'd have even more. So huge week for Tua, top scoring quarterback. Our top scoring running back, Aaron Jones, Austin Eckler right behind him, though, both a little over 26 there. And then Stephon Diggs, Christian McCaffrey, no surprises there. Tyler Algier, a huge week. Surprising to see him outdo Bijan. Both got a lot of work, though, so encouraging to see that Falcons backfield eat. Kendrick Bourne and Mac Jones, Patriots showing out through the air. Fell behind early against the Eagles and ended up being great news for those that had them in fantasy. I doubt many did, though. And then Calvin Ridley rounding out the top 12. Love to see it. Have Ridley in a lot of leagues. So, yeah, that was an interesting top 12. Some of the usual suspects, but also a lot of surprises.
Yeah, I'd say Myers especially stood out. We'll talk about him. And then Calvin Ridley, I'm not surprised that Calvin Ridley did well. But, I thought there might have been a little bit of rust coming off, season and a half of not playing. And he fit right in. He was excellent. And I think he's only going to continue to get better.
Yeah, I agree, man. No rust at all. And yeah, I think he could end up a top 5 receiver this year. I know that's tough to do, being that there's so many talented receivers in this league, but Calvin Ridley he's got the ability to do that. So I think there's a good chance he will, especially considering that Christian Kirk's role. I'm not saying give up on Christian Kirk, but he definitely took a back seat to Ridley this week.
For sure.
So let's take a look at the listener league before we get to this top surprises and disappointments. So shout out to all our listeners playing in the listener league this year. We've got 10 really knowledgeable listeners here. And man, I got by the skin of my teeth over Troy Thibodeau this week. 104.72 to 104.44. Good thing we have those decimals, because we probably would have tied if not. Oh my gosh, that was. And I have to tell y'all this, it was a Monday Night Miracle. I chalked this up as a loss, but Monday Night Miracle gave Stephon Diggs, Tyler Bass for the Bills, kicker, the kick to send it to overtime, the doink field goal that went in. That's why I won.
Yeah.
That's why I won.
You know what, Spencer? I like to think of it as not necessarily good luck for you. I think after the trade that Troy tried to send me the other day, it's almost bad luck and deserving for him. Let me just say, I wouldn't have ever taken that trade anyway. For those who don't know, he shot me Aaron Rodgers for Tua after Tua went off on Sunday.
Oh, yeah, he loves Tua.
Hindsight, I was never going to take it, but thank goodness I didn't.
Yeah, especially Aaron Rodgers. He ended up trading away the top scoring quarterback for nothing. Rodgers is donezo. So yeah, that was funny how things work out there. And then the rest of our scores, me and Gabe 1-0 on the 1-0 train. Gabe had a bigger week than me. Defeated UBN, Uncle Big Nick, who actually had a decent week there, 114, but fell short to Gabe's squad that went off with Tua, had a lot of points from him. William defeats Salmon 114 to 106. Pretty close one there. Hank Trill, shout out to Hank Trill, defeats Mike 148 to 106. Hank Trill, our highest scoring listener. So good start there for Latino Heat. Joseph, Bayou Bandits. This is a fitting name for Joseph in week 1, because he freaking stole that one, man. He got very fortunate. He was the third lowest scoring team that comes away with a victory, since Cameron there had a brutal start with 54. And then Roy, our defending champion, Bucktown Rebel, takes down the original Saints fan to start off 1-0 in his championship defending campaign.
Spencer, I want to note one more thing before we move on with the listener league. Shout out to Uncle Big Nick, who put up 114 points with Joe Burrow as his starting quarterback.
Right, and Chase, I was like, I bet UBN had a bad week, but yeah, I know he had Ayuk and some other guys that did really well. So yeah, I think I play UB in this week. I'm a little worried about that matchup because we know Burrow and Chase are going to do better. And if those other guys do well, man, my team's going to have to step it up.
Yeah. I mean, I was lucky. I was really fortunate my team went off because Uncle Big Nick's got a good squad.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. So, yeah, it'll be interesting to see how week 2 goes. Gabe and I 1-0, as well as 4 other listeners. So, yeah, good start to that league. Be interested to see how it goes moving forward. Let's get into our surprises here to finish our week 1 talk. Gotta say, man, Jordan Love, haven't talked about him yet, but Jordan Love, what a freaking week, man. 23 points without Christian Watson. Did all this without his best weapon. I know the Bears defense, I thought it'd be better, but as we saw, we know it's not very good. But Jordan Love, man, what a show. 23 points, and that's in 4-point passing league. So if it was 6 points, you'd have to add, I think he threw 2 touchdowns. So I had 4 extra points, 27. So, yeah, Jordan Love, man, he's looking like the real deal. He's at the bench there for 3 years, and I think that seasoning behind Aaron Rodgers has paid off to where he didn't really look like a rookie out there. And, I mean, he's a 4th-year player, so it makes sense that he looked a little more crisp than someone that hasn't hardly started any games.
Yeah, I think as well as he did play, this is more a testament to the Bears. I think the Bears look terrible. Their defense looked ill-prepared. And, yeah, I mean, Aaron Jones just feasted on that defense.
Yeah, I'm starting to think Matt Eberflus just isn't the guy there. He's a defensive coach. I mean, if their defense is still that much of a liability, they're going to have to make a coaching change over there.
Another one.
I know, right? Yeah, they can't. Listen, Matt Nagy had the good first year, and ever since then it's just been disastrous year after year there in Chicago. But we'll see if they can turn it around. It's only 1 week, but I do think the Jordan Love thing's for real, as we'll see in the waiver wire segment. My running back surprise, though, yeah, Tyler Algier. He was a top 12 scorer, and just surprised that more so about the fact that he ate alongside Bijan. Like, I figured they'd both get work this week, but I thought, Bijan's probably going to take over and end up with the higher total. But Algier, man, got the goal line work and also caught some passes. It was about a 50-50 split, and not sure if that'll continue. But for now, Algier is a must start, and he's not really a waiver wire guy. A lot of people had him rostered as a handcuff, and he's looking like more than a handcuff. He's looking like someone that's at least a flex play.
Yeah, Arthur Smith's found the perfect balance. He's mixed both Algier and Bijan into that offense. And let me just say, Spencer, there were a lot of questions about how the Falcons would get it done with all those different weapons on offense and with Desmond Ridder, who is at best a game manager at quarterback. Let me just say there is no value right now in the passing game. And that, as it relates to Drake London, who had a terrible week, it relates to Kyle Pitts, who was pretty bad. I mean, I'm fading everything that isn't the running backs in Atlanta. But both those guys, if Bijan's not going to be available in any league. But if you're lucky enough to be in a league where Tyler Algier is on your waivers, you should be racing to pick him up.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, because I think he's rostered in about 50% of leagues. So there's about half of leagues out there, shallower leagues, where he's there available. Yeah. So go get him. Go get him now, because we'll get to Drake London in a minute when the disappointment segment. I think there might be some hope for him, but yeah, definitely a run-first offense there. Arthur Smith, that's a ground and pound attack there, no doubt. Jacoby Myers, surprising there, 29.1 points. I mean, I figured the Raiders, they might have to throw it there. Denver, pretty stingy run defense, but I'm surprised that Jacoby Myers did this well. I guess it's kind of a testament to the Broncos having Patrick Surtain, an elite number 1 corner who is, I'm sure, blanketing Devontae Adams. And Adams actually had an okay game, nothing special, but he had about 12 points or something. So it wasn't a total bust. So just Myers, though, the 2 touchdowns, thinking that now that he's with the Raiders, that he might be in for a career year, because with the Patriots, he was just kind of like, he's all right, PPR guy. But if he becomes a red zone threat now, he might be a must start.
Yeah, I mean, it's all the attention is obviously, and rightly so, going to go to Devontae Adams because of how coveted a receiver he is. But, Jacoby Myers, people overlook him because he was in New England, who didn't really have a great passing attack over the last few years. Jacoby Myers can ball out. And let me just say, I don't know if you saw it, Spencer, his injury. That was one of the scariest injuries of the week and one of the scariest injuries in football that I've seen recently. So I am very glad that it is only a concussion for him and he's only going to miss a few weeks because that was, I mean, it was hard to watch.
Damn. Yeah, because when did that occur in the game? I'm guessing pretty late.
Yeah, it was pretty late in the game. He caught a pass over the middle and just got absolutely rocked. I think he took a shoulder to the face mask to the
Damn.
head area, and I mean he went down immediately and was motionless. It was a really scary situation. I hadn't heard anything until today, so I'm glad it seems like a pretty minor thing, all things considered.
Yeah, for sure. Because I was like, if he could have had an even bigger game. He may have been. He was right behind Ayuk for number 2. I don't think he'd have caught Tyreek, but maybe he could have gotten second for the week. But yeah, definitely a really good week for Jacoby Myers. Hopefully he can clear concussion protocol. But even if he misses the next week or two, keep him stashed because he showed that he's capable of putting up serious production. And biggest tight end surprised me is Hunter Henry being the top scoring tight end. It was a rough week for the tight end position, being that both Travis Kelce and Mark Andrews were inactive. But there are a few guys that stepped up, and Hunter Henry was one of them. Patriots offense was airing it out, and we figured that Bill O'Brien would involve the tight ends more, being how much success he had with Gronk back in the day. And yeah, Hunter Henry, not saying he's Gronk, he definitely isn't, but he's a guy that might have some moments here and there. And not going to say he's a must start moving forward, but he's definitely put himself in the streaming conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. I was really surprised they got him involved as much as they did. But Hunter Henry's a solid tight end when you involve him, and obviously we saw that on Sunday.
Yeah, they have Gesicki too, which is why I'm concerned that this won't be an every week thing for Henry. But if Gesicki, like, he wasn't too good last year, like if he stays struggling, like Henry might eventually just be the clear cut receiving tight end, and if that's the case, then he's worth it. So in a deeper league, I'd pick him up. In a shower league, I'd probably just be like, yeah, well, let's see how this plays out, because that Patriots offense was very good, but I don't see it lasting because I don't see the game script going that way every week as far as them trailing like that early.
Yeah, and Spencer, before we do move on from our surprises, I do want to give a special shout out to Zay Flowers, who looked
Yes,
like the
yes.
number one receiver in Baltimore right away. I we've talked about it all offseason. We knew he was going to be good. I didn't know he would be that good that quickly. So Zay Flowers is definitely a guy that you want to have on your team if that's possible.
Yeah, glad I got a lot of shares of his, and it's probably not on any waiver wires, but yeah, he might be worth looking to trade for because he's probably his value is probably only going up here moving forward. So let's move on here to disappointments. Boy, did they have some disappointments. This week one had a lot of ugly performances. We'll start with Joe Burrow. My gosh, 3 points. Like, what the hell? I mean, this dude just got paid. Can't say I'm shocked by that, though, because he basically missed the entire offseason with a calf injury. So just, man, the 3 points, man, just come on. Like, he was started everywhere. So if you had Joe Burrow, chances are you probably didn't win your matchup because he stunk. No two ways about it.
Yeah, it was just a horrible mix of things. Obviously, you mentioned he missed almost the entire offseason. It was a dreary day in Cleveland. It was pouring rain. His offensive line didn't look good, and he just didn't look like himself. And then, shout out the Cleveland defense, too.
Yeah, they
They
stepped up.
looked excellent.
They stepped up. I think Burrow will be fine, though.
Yeah.
But the guy I don't know is going to be fine. DeAndre Swift, 1.3, barely involved. Kenny Gainwell ends up being the primary back. Rashad Penny was a healthy scratch. So when I heard that, I was like, oh, well, that's good news for DeAndre Swift. I guess he'll get most of the work. But Gainwell ends up ahead of him. So, yeah, what a disaster there. I'd give Swift maybe another week or two. But if he stays in the doghouse much longer, he's going to be droppable.
I mean, I would consider dropping him now. We heard rumors all off season about DeAndre Swift might not be the guy. Sirianni likes his guys, and we saw Boston Scott getting touches in that game over DeAndre Swift, and I don't see any pathway to success for him. I really don't.
Yeah, it's not a good situation. Their whole Eagles backfield just so tough to predict. I'd probably just, even though Gainwell got a lot of work, it's just hard to trust anyone over there. And we'll keep the Eagles thing going. Dallas Goedert, not as concerned about him, but still only one target, no catches, 0 points. Man, the Eagles, it's just, I mean, AJB and Devontae are going to get theirs, and I think Goddard will get his eventually. But I don't know, man. I was thinking that offense might regress a little bit, and sure enough, Jalen Hurts didn't have a very good week 1, and they just, yeah, I'm just a tad concerned about Philly.
Yeah, I mean, it was a weird week for Philly. They jumped out to a big lead early, and sometimes you just don't expect to be in that situation.
That's true. That's true.
Unlike DeAndre Swift, I would give Goddard some more time.
Yeah.
We talked about he is Mr. Consistent at tight end when it comes to the quote unquote second tier guys. So I think he'll be okay eventually. It was just, as you mentioned, a concerning week for all tight ends.
Yeah, this is a really bad week for the position. If every week was like this, we would just do away with the tight end position because, that was not fun to have to deal with. And then Drake London, a goose egg. We touched on that earlier, talking about Algier. And reason I think Drake London will be okay, though, even though, I mean, this was a disaster, 0 points on only 1 target. I think the Falcons are going to have to start throwing a little bit more to keep defenses honest. They're not going to be able to just run all over everybody each week. Like the Panthers must have kind of a weak run defense, but not every defense is going to be that soft up the middle. So I think Drake London will eventually get his. I think as soon as this week, maybe Green Bay. Green Bay, they're going to probably have to throw more in that game. So Desmond Ridder doesn't really have any other go-to targets. So to me, Drake London is going to be the guy there, and he'll turn this thing around. This isn't going to be the norm for him.
Yeah, I mean, the one target tells the story of it all. He might not have been getting open all the time, but Desmond Ridder just didn't look at him. And so when you don't look at a guy, obviously he's going to struggle. And as you mentioned, they're going to have to pass more. I'm with you. I'm in the same boat. I think Drake London will be just fine, but it is really concerning as someone who's got a lot of shares in Drake London.
Yeah, I do too. So yeah, it's just kind of like, might bench him this week if I'm in a shallower league, but if I'm in a deeper league, I'm still going to ride it out because, I think it's just one of those things, on a weekly basis, you never know what can happen. But I think over the course of the season, he's still going to have a solid year.
I agree.
So let's move on to our waiver wire pickups here. And I'll go first. Got some names for y'all here. I'm going with Jordan Love. I'm riding the wave. Gets Atlanta this week. I think that'll be a somewhat high-scoring game. Don't know if it'll be a shootout per se, but there's just, the quarterback position, if you're looking for it on the waiver wire, you can't expect to get. It's not like people are going to be stupid and drop Joe Burrow. And as my dad says here, people overreact after week 1 and make moves that don't benefit them. Yeah, exactly. So don't go drop a stud quarterback for Jordan Love. But if you're in a situation where you need a quarterback, Jordan Love is a good option because he's someone that I think is going to get better moving forward. He did this well without Christian Watson. And I think he's someone that's capable of finishing as a top 12 quarterback. I took him a little earlier than some thought I should have in a super flex league right before the season. I was like, it was a money league. So I was like, as a money pick, money moves. I was like, I took a little bit of a risk, but this is someone that if he hits his ceiling is going to really pay off. And so Jordan Love there at 15.8% roster to me is worth a shot. If let's just say like you have like Dak Prescott and Russ, just something that's not all that great, you might as well try and tweak it a little bit.
Yeah, I agree. We talked about him earlier. I think he's only going to get better. This was, for all intents and purposes, his first real start as the number 1. So, he looked good and showed signs of being a veteran, which, we mentioned he's in his 4th year, but once again, it's his first real start for all intents and purposes. He was always going to be Rodgers' backup in the past when he came in and played. So this is his first game as the guy, and he lived up to expectations.
Facts, yeah. And then I got Joshua Kelly at running back. The reason I really like Joshua Kelly is not only because Austin Eckler is dealing with an ankle injury, but because he was heavily involved this week in Kellen Moore's offense. And Kellen Moore's offense in Dallas thrived the best with a 2-back system, Zeke and Tony Pollard. And Eckler and Josh Kelly, I think, could end up one of the best backfield duos this year. And, he's a good long-term ad because of that, and also a good short-term ad because Eckler's battling an ankle injury. And if Eckler would miss a game or two, then Joshua Kelly's going to be a workhorse at that point, because I don't think Isaiah Spiller's ready for a big role. He was a healthy scratch, I believe, this week. So, yeah, Josh Kelly, y'all go get him. Only 11.3% rostered. He's someone that's trending up, and I think is going to continue to get a lot of work.
Yeah, I was really surprised watching bits and pieces of that game how involved he was early. I didn't expect him to get that much involvement, that many carries. But as you mentioned, Kellen Moore's offense runs best when he's got two workhorse running backs.
Yeah, for sure. So we'll see how it ends up. But yeah, I feel like Kelly's worth it. Yeah, because like with Kenny Gainwell, it's like we don't know what the Eagles' run game is going to end up. So he's another name to watch. A few other ones. Roshan Johnson for the Bears, a rookie there, did really well. He could be worth a look. And the Ravens duo, Gus Bus and Justice Hill, they could be worth looks as well with J.K. Dobbins out. And then Kyron Williams, another name to watch for the Rams. So a lot of running backs to monitor. Kelly's my favorite, though. But Kyron Williams had a huge week one. And the Rams offense that looked really good, thanks in large part to my wide receiver recommendation here. Puka Nakua. I believe I said the name right there. Still not sure if I got it right, but tried my best. He's a rookie out of BYU who freaking balled out this week. Not expected, 2.5% owned, but showed the world that he's the weapon that Sean McVay had been looking for, that he didn't have last year when Cooper Kupp went down. Cooper Kupp obviously out again right now, and offense looked okay without him, thanks to Puka here, who really just filled in admirably. 15 targets, over 100 yards, 11 catches, just workhorse receiver type stuff as a rookie. So not saying he's going to do that every week, but as long as Kupp's out, he's going to be a guy. And so if you need a receiver, he's, to me, an obvious ad.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes this comes with the territory of doing a fantasy show. Sometimes we got to eat our words, Spencer. The LA Rams offense looked pretty decent the other day. And, on the flip side of that, we do get to kind of pat ourselves on the back. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention this. I've already gone 27 minutes without it. But we can take a victory lap on David Montgomery, who was heavily involved on Thursday night as well.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, Monty did well. Jahmyr Gibbs, though, I think is going to get more involved. So, yeah, Monty, I was like, I mean, I'm glad he did well, but it's just one of those things like Jahmyr Gibbs was much more efficient. So, the good thing with Monty is that he's going to get the goal line work. So,
they both look super impressive. So just wanted to throw that in there.
Yeah, for sure. I didn't really talk much about the Thursday game. Yeah, speaking of disappointments, when we talked about that Kadarius Toney. Oh my God. Goodness. Basically just gave the game away. I mean, Detroit played pretty well, but Sky Moore stunk. Yeah, that was tough to see. So speaking of stink, let's get the tight end position out the way. But if you need a deep dive tight end, Jake Ferguson, man, had 7 targets, didn't do much with them, but Dallas just didn't really need to throw all that much. And I think with this offense, like, they're going to throw to the tight end. Dak Prescott loves throwing to the tight end, as we saw when he had Dalton Schultz. And Dalton Schultz gone now. I think Jake Ferguson's going to be the new receiving threat there. And Dallas is going to have to throw more moving forward. They're not going to win 40-0 every week. So I think Jake Ferguson's someone you might not even have to put a waiver claim in for him. You might be able to sneak him in as a free agent. But if you're looking for like a backup tight end or something, you could add him, stash him. Or if you need a streamer, Jets defense gave up between Knox and Kincaid. They had like over 50 yards combined, I think. So Ferguson might even be a decent streamer.
Yeah, for sure. As you mentioned, Dallas, he put up decent numbers, and Dallas didn't have to do anything offensively. I mean, honestly, you could have thrown you or I in at quarterback, and Dallas would have still comfortably won that game.
Yeah. Yeah, they didn't need they just had the cruise control the whole game. So, yeah, keep an eye on Ferguson. Not an obvious one because his stat line wasn't really that pretty, but the 7 targets stood out to me. It shows Dak was really looking his way, and I think that'll continue moving forward. So, all right, Gabe, so you got Brock Purdy as your quarterback ad. I feel like that's a good one, but let the people know why you're going with him.
Yeah, I mean, Brock Purdy had a pretty good week one. Everyone was wondering how he would come back from his injury. Only had 10 incompletions. He threw the ball 29 times, over 200 yards, pair of touchdowns. And that's in a game where they dominated. And, we just talked about the Cowboys game. They didn't have to throw very much, and neither did the 49ers. The 49ers had control of this game. So I think Brock Purdy's going to get more opportunity to sling the rock in further weeks, put up some more points. He's got an amazing cast around him with Ayuk and Debo and CMC and the rest of that bunch. And, he's Mr. Consistent. I love to throw that phrase around. Brock Purdy is Mr. Consistent. He's going to get you 230 to 250 yards every week, 2 touchdowns, maybe a pick here and there. But he's a low risk, high reward guy who I think, if you had someone like Aaron Rodgers or you had quarterback issues in week 1, it's worth a flyer to pick up Purdy, who looked pretty good coming back from injury.
Facts. Yeah, I can't believe this dude. It just boggles my mind that this dude was Mr. Irrelevant.
Yeah.
In the freaking real life NFL draft. And that Trey Lance, the 49ers literally traded draft picks away to get him. And now he's not even on their roster. And they instead are going with the quote unquote Mr. Irrelevant there in Brock Purdy, who's now become very relevant. And yeah, he's, he doesn't really run much, but he's going to throw a good amount. As you said, a good cast. So yeah, he's just in a really good situation. So in Kyle Shanahan's offense, quarterback usually always does fairly decent. So yeah, I think Purdy is an upgrade over Jimmy G. So yeah, I think he's someone to keep an eye on if you need a QB.
Yeah, for sure. And then at the running back position, I've got Zach Moss, who will be the starting running back for the Colts when he comes back. Because Spencer, I don't know if you caught any of the Jags-Colts game. It was drunk. That game,
yeah, their running game was garbage. Other than Anthony Richardson.
Yeah, at one point they were a combined 0 for 5 on 4th down between the two of them. Most of those, if not all of them, were within 1 to 2 yards. Neither team, especially the Colts, could really run the ball all that well. Deion Jackson looked terrible. He was good last year. Everyone thought with Zach Moss out, he would have an opportunity to cement his place. I think this is the easiest decision ever. In every league that I have him, I'm trashing him, picking up Zach Moss where you can. And you know what? If you look at the Colts' upcoming schedule, they've got a handful of tough teams, but really they're gonna look to run the ball, especially with a rookie quarterback. And Anthony Richardson didn't make too many mistakes the other day, but I would still, if I'm the Colts, I would look to get that run game going a little bit more if they want to have any sort of success this year. So that's why I like Zach Moss.
For sure, man. Yeah, I'm with you on that as far as him being the workhorse over there, as long as Jonathan Taylor's out. Because, yeah, Deion Jackson, we saw it last year when JT went down. Zach Moss had went there in a midseason trade and ended up the guy down the stretch because Deion Jackson just simply isn't. I mean, he's a guy that's an okay complimentary back, but as a primary workhorse, we saw it firsthand this week. It's a disaster. So yeah, Zach Moss should be ready to go this week. Definitely a good addition there. And I see you got Robert Woods at wide receiver there, one of your Texans guys. So I know he did pretty good, but do you think that's for real that he's going to keep that up?
Yeah, and I'll be the first to admit that I saw something from Nico Collins as well, but obviously in a Texans wide receiving core that's not that flashy. A lot of people decided to go with Nico Collins, their number 1 guy. And if you're not one of those guys, Robert Woods, he looked to have a lot of chemistry with Stroud. He had 6 receptions for 57 yards, which isn't great, but that's 11 points in standard PPR leagues. Yeah. From a Texans offense that really struggled the other day against the Ravens, which everyone kind of expected. The Texans schedule gets easier. And Robert Woods just looked like that veteran safety blanket, and he's making me question, was last year an outlier for him? Is he back? Because he looked pretty good the other day, I must admit.
Yeah, I think he's someone that in that offense they're going to be trailing a lot, and as a result, they're going to be CJ Stroud's going to be just having to throw to people, and Woods, as you said, they've got chemistry, so I'm not probably rushing to go pick him up, but yeah, if you can't get Puka or some of the other younger receivers, then it could be worth a look.
If you're in one of the 12, 14 team leagues, a deeper league, Robert Woods is definitely worth a flyer after what I saw last week. He got a lot of targets.
Yeah, and Hayden Hurst, I say, could maybe be a deep dive tight end play, and sure enough, had one of the top tight end weeks, and I see you like him as a pickup.
Yeah, he looks to have settled in really quickly, which has never really been a problem for him. His problem has always been injuries. He's pretty consistent when he's healthy. You know, he had 5 receptions, which might be a little concerning there, only 5, but I think as the season goes on, Bryce Young will settle in a little more because he looked a little shaky at times. And, you know, obviously rookie quarterbacks love their veteran tight ends. And Hayden Hurst is an underrated tight end, especially given he's only rostered in 4.8% of leagues.
Yeah, I agree. The reason I like him is because none of their receivers stepped up. He was the leading receiver. The Panthers receiving core, a hot mess to say the least. So yeah, Hayden Hurst should continue, at least be a solid option moving forward. Probably not. It's just not really any like great tight ends out there. But yeah, you just need something somewhat stable. So I think he'll do the trick there.
Yeah, you know, with a lot of people looking at guys like Tyler Higbee, please don't pick up Higbee. Please look at Hayden Hurst. He deserves to be rostered in more than 5% of leagues.
Yeah, well, Higbee's, I looked at him, he was like 90% roster. I was like, well, man, that just goes to show how bad the position is. I mean, because Higbee, nothing special, but yeah, there's just nothing there. So yeah, just gotta do what we can. And yeah, Hayden Hurst is a good option there. Irv Smith, I mean, the new Bengals tight end, as bad as they were, he caught a few passes. So that tells me once they get things right over there, maybe he could be a sneaky option.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, y'all. I think that's going to do it here for this week's Fantasy Roundup. Appreciate everyone that tuned in. Hope y'all's week 1 was all right. And week 2, we just got to keep improving, man, because, I mean, week 1, you know, don't want to get your hopes up too high if you did good. And also, if you lost, don't give up, obviously. Keep on fighting. So, yeah, week 2, I think that's when things will get a little more level, I guess. I don't think things will be quite as hectic, but there's definitely going to still be some twists and turns.
Yeah, you know, I mean, I like to think I had a good week. I'm in 9 leagues, won 7 of my games. One league I lost was a vampire league where I'm the vampire, and the other was one where I started Daniel Jones and Saquon Barkley. So I'm feeling pretty good about this start.
For sure. Yeah, I agreed about Dallas and the 49ers. Those are elite defenses. Cleveland, I think, just got lucky with Joe Burrow not
their front
not
seven
being
looks
prepared.
good.
Oh yeah, no, I'm not saying. I mean, I'm not saying they're not good, but I don't think they're as elite as they looked on Sunday. But we'll see. We'll see. So, all right, y'all. Well, that's gonna wrap it up for Spencer Guru Urquhart and Gabe Henderson. This has been Fantasy Roundup presented by Caesars Sportsbook, official odds partner of Bet.NOLA.com. We'll be back on Jim Derry and I Thursday at 4 o'clock, and of course, Gabe and I will be back at this same time next Tuesday. So until then. We'll see y'all later. Peace.